Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Easter Pod. I'm your host, Corey Easterday, and on this episode, we are chatting with the one and only Craig Collin. Craig and I covered so much in our conversation. Craig is a great friend, an amazing human, and a fellow stand-up comedian, which is very cool because since starting the podcast about, a little more than 5 years ago now in 2020, I haven't had a chance to have a lot of stand-up comics on the show, and especially since I started doing stand-up comedy myself almost 2 years ago now, haven't had a chance to have a lot of other comics on the show. So it was great to have Craig join the Easter Pod family and chat about things like his stand-up comedy journey, how he got to where he is today, all the cool stuff he's doing with that. And we talked a lot, too, about how he's a keynote speaker, talking a lot about topics like resilience, and he's a 6-time cancer survivor. Incredible story, incredible person, great friend, great stand-up comic. So it was really an honor to have Craig on the show. You're going to enjoy the episode. You're going to enjoy our conversation. We covered a lot of broad topics too about creativity, life, philosophies, all the good stuff that you've come to expect from the show. And as always, of course, the Easter Pod is striving to bring you stories of rad humans that inspire you to engage the world with creativity and hope. Craig is absolutely one of those humans, as you'll learn. And my dear friend, an actress, so much more, incredible human in her own right, Annalisa Wall was my guest on the previous episode of the show, and we had a great wide-ranging conversation as well. So please be sure to check out the previous episode with Annalisa. Check out, we're almost at 40 total episodes. A lot of great conversations, a lot of great guests. All of them are very evergreen, in my opinion. Incredible stories. So please go back and be sure to check out the back catalog as well of people from Charlotte and all over, really. It's been an honor to have all the guests I've had on the show. And we have a lot more coming up. I have a bunch of interviews that I've already recorded. Some incredible people coming up on the show. Going to finish out 2025 strong. Stay in touch with us. You can follow the show at the Easter Pod. Follow me at the Easter Dude on all the social platforms. Subscribe on your podcast platform of choice so that you don't miss any of the great episodes we have coming up. And if you feel so inclined, feel free to leave a rating, review, follow on social, share with friends, all the things. Always means a lot and really helps the show. And before we dive into my conversation with Craig, special thanks to Easterday Creative for joining forces with the Easter Pod to bring you these stories of rad humans, and to my friends at Token for helping to produce this episode. Follow Craig Collin at Laugh with Craig on social media. Check out his website, laughwithcraig.com. Upcoming comedy shows, speaking engagements, ways to connect, so much more, all on the website. And I cannot wait for you to hear this. So without further ado, my conversation with Craig Collin. Well, folks, the pressure is on as I introduce today's guest because he's someone that uniquely has introduced me in public dozens of times at this point and is always super encouraging and enthusiastic when he does. And I'm very grateful for that and for him. And I'm very excited because he's one of the great friends I've made exclusively through my stand-up comedy journey the last couple years. And not only is he a gifted comedian and speaker, but he is indeed one of the most supportive and best people you could ever hope to meet. So yeah, no pressure on him now to live up to that. He's a comedian, keynote speaker, author, a captain of industry, if you will, and so much more. Craig Collin, welcome to the Easter Pod. How are you doing today?
Wow, I want you to record that for my wife and play it back for her because she would have a completely different intro for me. No, it's a real pleasure to be here, Corey. Love all the conversations that we've had in real life, and it's really kind of cool to sit down and record one with you today. So I appreciate you having me on the show today.
Yeah, of course. And it's it's so funny. So this is to get a little meta, this is like my first time sitting down to record the podcast since about March of this year. One of the nice things about the show, but one of the things to kind of overcome is with all the other things I have going on, and having our daughter and all these wonderful parts of life, stand-up comedy, work, all this stuff. The podcast has become more infrequent, but it's consistent in that, been doing 5 to 7 episodes on average every year, but it can be like a little bit inconsistent. So we've both been in kind of like a feeling out process, and I think this it might be the longest like pre-show conversation I've ever had since recording the podcast, because we do get along so naturally and are like enjoy talking to each other, which is great. But then we like look at the clock and we're like, oh yeah, we've been chatting for 40 minutes and like none of it was on the podcast. So now we're actually recording.
Yeah, the podcast itself will be shorter than the conversation that preceded it, right? Like it's when you have somebody that is easy to talk to, and I'm guilty of this all the time. Like I was at a show last night and I tried to leave like 3 times, and I just kind of kept, and not like I was getting sucked back in, but I kept inserting myself back into conversations, and I didn't get on the road till like 10:45. I think the show was over at 9. So I get it. It's both a blessing and a curse when you have 2 people that enjoy talking to each other and are good at doing it. So we'll try to be as interesting on the show as the conversation was before.
Yeah. And we could record the conversation we had before and do like a Craig and Corey After Dark version, just all the things we didn't want to share on the podcast.
A reenactment, like Rescue 911 or all those old shows,
Yeah, which is funny because like we're in terms of comedy, I know you wouldn't classify yourself necessarily as a clean comic. I definitely like lean more towards that way. So it's kind of funny that the idea we would even have like an After Dark anything, because we both are more so in that clean comedy type world. Which there's been, many evenings at Carolina Beer Temple where you host an open mic here in Charlotte that we have been talking to one another for so long that like people are like pulling us away, or pulling, your family's pulling you away to like get into the car. I'm like, oh, I have to get back home or whatever. But that kind of leads me into like how we got connected, which was originally through Carolina Beer Temple, but even a step before that. I think it was March 2024, I came to a meeting of comedians in Charlotte, like kind of a networking event, and you were at the table. You were one of the first people I talked to. It had been months since I did my graduation stand-up show at Catch, taught by Jason Allen King, who I've had on the podcast before, very funny local comedian here in Charlotte. And I was like, all right, I got to, Megan and I had found out we were pregnant a couple months before that, kind of threw everything for a loop. But I was like, if I love comedy and want to do this, I got to get back out there. So I went to this networking event, and Craig was right off the bat one of the nicest people in the world, because to me, here was this comedian who, for all I knew, had been at it for 10 years and was like the most successful comic in Charlotte or in the nation, for all I knew. I had no context. And he was willing to give me the time of day and like walk me through, who to know, what to check out, all that. And just very encouraging of like, I have this mic that I do at Carolina Beer Temple. Please come check it out. And next night, sure enough, I did. And since then, it's probably dozens and dozens of Beer Temple mics. But that's where we originally got connected.
That's awesome. I completely forgot that I met you at that event. We there were 4 comedy producers in Charlotte, and we kind of put our heads together and we said, we really need like organization and unity in our comedy scene. We even tried to start a nonprofit, but what we didn't reckon with was the fact that 4 extremely busy comedy producers really don't have time for anything outside of producing their own shows and like balancing their own lives and things. So it kind of, we're all in touch. We work together all the time, but the actual formal kind of entity dissolved pretty quickly after that initial networking event. And so it was really great. People talk about it fondly, and I met so many great people through it. But I completely forgot that I met you there. I've known you for so long at this point, I couldn't remember the first time we met. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. For better or worse, I have a very detailed memory most of the time. And what stuck out to me about your mic too is that at the time it was like a family friendly open mic. Now we've all grown up. It's now PG-13 or whatever, but it was the only one around of its kind in Charlotte. I want to ask you kind of the foundational question that I know we've talked about here and there, but just to get it for the history books, like talk to me about before we get into like the specifics of the mic and all these things you're doing in comedy, like how you even got started in stand-up, how long you've been doing it, like just kind of the recap of your stand-up journey as much as you want to share, like kind of to this point.
Sure, yeah. So I've always been a somewhat of a performer in my life. I grew up doing plays in as early as elementary school. I played Thomas Edison in a musical that we did at my elementary school called The Electric Sunshine Man, which is just as lame as it sounds. Went through middle school, drama club, high school. I was in several plays, and then I kind of walked away from performing a little bit, but started working in corporate America where I spoke and led meetings in front of groups of people. So I never really lost that performing vibe. Fast forward to post-COVID, things were starting to open up again, and I had a friend who was in my electric skateboard group who was taking a comedy class, and he invited everybody to his graduation. And so I came. I was like, I'm a big comedy fan. Let me see what the local comedy scene is like. And I had checked out shows, of course, at the Comedy Zone, met people that I didn't know were going to be colleagues later on. I have a very distinct memory of watching a show that Mimi Benfield, local legend, was hosting, and now I've been on shows with her. But I'm kind of rambling here. Let me get back to the thread. I went to this comedy graduation show, and it was really funny, but also sometimes you get into a room and you go, man, like I could do this. I could like at the level of what I'm seeing right here, I'm like this funny. I'm like this outgoing. I could enjoy this and see myself doing this. So I signed up for, the next round of the comedy class. And Don Garrett, who's a local comedian, I don't think he teaches a class anymore, but I took his comedy class. And while I was in the class, started to meet other people. I started to go to Starlight on 22nd, was one of the few mics that they were running at that time in Charlotte. So I met Jordan Sentry, and I was there every Tuesday night. That was like my thing. Well, I took the class, after the class, and toward the end of the comedy class, Don, my professor, was featuring on a comedy show. And he said, hey, come check it out. Let's go watch it. And the producer, unbeknownst to me, I showed up to the show thinking I was going to be in the audience, and she asked me if I would like to do a 5-minute guest spot at the beginning of the show. And I'm like, sure, why not? I've got roughly 5 minutes strung together at this point from my comedy class. And it was great. The audience was amazing. It felt so good. And I said, oh, man, this is going to be easy. All I have to do is meet all the other producers in Charlotte, and they'll all put me on their shows like immediately. And it's going to be super easy. That was not the case. It took a long time. It took me probably a year and a half before those real bookings started happening. So I'm coming into my 4th year of stand-up comedy, and I would say just in the last year, 6 months to a year, have I been getting booked consistently. So my message to people would be, stick with it. It takes longer than you would expect to kind of get a foothold.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm kind of laughing because the graduation show I did at Catch with Jason's class went super well, and I got the tape back from it, started posting on Instagram. That's going fairly well. And I think it's part of the naivete of like not having been in a world or like really done something before. Even if, in spite of other experiences you may have had, and like generally speaking before you get into comedy. But I had this like kind of like, I did great. So people are going to see like, oh, he's a great comic, and they're going to book me, and it's just going to like start rolling in or whatever. And it's really that kind of like not delusion, but just the like not understanding the grind that it really is, how important the like face-to-face relationships are.
Oh, yeah.
How important for every comic who's ever done it, like getting the reps, getting the time. We have a comic that of national acclaim that moved to Charlotte recently, Steve Hofstetter, and I was talking to him at the very first place I ever saw him at in Charlotte at Royal Tot, where our friends Kai and Angie host Mike there, and I remember just telling him like, "Hey, great to meet you. I'm a comedian, whatever," and just asking for basic advice, and it was just he was like, "Get those 10,000 hours in, but make sure." You're doing it the right way as you get those 10,000 hours in, like bettering yourself, evolving, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But you just don't, the point is like, you just don't realize all that goes into it to be successful when you're starting out. So it is kind of funny that you have that like, oh, I did great. Everyone's just going to kind of start banging down the door.
Yeah, it's sort of unfortunate that that's kind of the starting point for a lot of people because you're in probably the most supportive room that you'll be in for the next several years because you've got all your friends and family and the friends and families of the other people who are performing. They're all there to see you succeed. They're all going to err on the side of giving you the benefit of the doubt with every joke and every punchline. And then there's no steeper drop off than that first open mic, like after graduation. No one knows you. They don't care. They're like, make me laugh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Jason did say that before our show. He's like, this is the best crowd you're going to have. And luckily, I think you didn't take the class with me, but for me personally, like I have luckily had good crowds since then.
Yeah.
But that I think rings true for the most part. Like I look back on the videos, I'm like, that's still like the best crowd. But it's just funny how that kind of works and as you get more into it. But talk to me about, because that was my first starting point with you. Like talk to me about the mic at Carolina Beer Temple, like how you got into hosting a mic, what it's been like to run that and go through that whole process, how it's helped you become better as a comic, all that stuff.
Absolutely. I'll take you back a little farther than you've known me. Some things have happened for me probably earlier than they should have in my career just due to circumstance. So early on, I spent a lot of my material early on was about, and I know we'll get into this a little later, but I'm a 6-time cancer survivor, and that's informed a lot of my life for the last 20 years that I've been dealing with it. And so a lot of my material early on was around that. A lot of humor is a coping mechanism for me. It's a way of dealing with a lot of the trauma that's come from my illnesses. And a lot of it was learning a balancing act of, kind of how to get people to accept joking about such a serious subject. But early on, I had an opportunity where the American Cancer Society, for their Relay for Life program I think this was, 2022, they decided they wanted to have a stand-up comedy show as part of their Relay event. And it was at Symphony Park in South End. And Tara Brown, the amazing Tara Brown, probably the most famous clean comedian in Charlotte. She's moved to Nashville since then, but she headlined, and they were looking for people who were specifically had kind of stories and experiences around or related to fighting cancer, beating cancer, surviving cancer. And so me and another comedian who both had material around this kind of got tapped on the shoulder and asked if we would be willing to do it. And so I got to do, like 5 to 7 minutes at a huge auditorium type show way, way early in my stand-up comedy career. And again, this was one of those things where I was just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go on tour with the American Cancer Society and it's going to be flash bulbs and huge paychecks. But at that show, I met the DJ who was running the sound for that show. He did a bunch of events at local venues, and there was a hot dog restaurant who was looking for a comedy night, an open mic. And we just happened to meet, and he said, hey, do you have any interest in hosting an open mic? And I said, sure, absolutely. I lean into any opportunity that I'm given, and I'll figure it out as we go. And so, I said yes without even thinking about what that would entail. And so then I immediately reached out to the comedy producer friends that I had made in the first several months of doing comedy. And, I sat down with Jordan Sentry, who I mentioned earlier was the first open mic host I ever met. He met with me for an hour, and I just took notes on stole most of his ideas, appropriated them. And it wasn't perfect from the start, far from it. And the venue was it was a hot dog restaurant that had auto pour beer and axe throwing, and wasn't doing super hot itself at first. And so we were probably not hurting anything, but I don't think we were bringing in the throngs of people that they thought like an open mic comedy night might do as well. But I crawled there, I say, so I could walk at Carolina Beer Temple. So we did that for about a year. And then the restaurant ran out of money and had to close over the holidays. I think they're back in business as far as I know, but they were kind of like, hey, we don't have a budget for any events anymore. And so I kind of said, okay, well, we had a good run. We did this for a year. And that's, by the way, how I got into doing clean comedy, because they were a restaurant where people could come and go, and they didn't want to have kind of like a blue comedy open mic night happening at like 7 o'clock on a Monday when there could be families coming in to eat. And so I kind of got pigeonholed into the clean comedy space, but I enjoyed it. It was a good challenge to write clean. I'm not, in general, like a clean person, I guess is the nicest way to say it. I can control myself. I can behave in a corporate setting, but I definitely, like when I'm among friends and family, I talk a different way. But it was fun. It was a good exercise writing clean. But when it kind of fell apart, a friend of mine, Ty McLaurin, who runs the Stumptown Comedy Jam in Matthews, he reached out to me and he said, hey, man, do you want me to try to find you a new venue? I really enjoy going to your mic on Monday nights. It's been a really fun exercise to try to write clean. I'd hate to see that go away. And I kind of resisted at first. I was in defeat mode. I was like, just it's not meant to be. Let it go. And he was kind of persistent. And so finally I let him talk me into, hey, can we reach out to Carolina Beer Temple? They would like to have a trial run of a comedy open mic. And I remember very specifically, I was sitting in my oncologist's office a Monday morning, and they decided, let's have it tonight. And I'm making a flyer on Canva while I'm waiting for my oncologist to come in for my appointment for a show in 4 hours. And to their credit, they packed the place out. We had good participation from the comics, and it was really well received. And so they said, hey, we'd like to, at the beginning of the year, kind of make it a regular thing. Let's start out doing it bi-weekly. And it's just grown from there. They've moved to a brand new building that's gigantic now. We have great participation. About 15 comics come out every other Monday to do the mic. And the audience has been pretty consistent. We had one rough week where school started and everybody was gone, but I mean, you've been there. You tell me, what do you think about it?
I mean, I'm biased because I very much I say the swears. I'm not, I'm not perfect, but being that I come from most of my life, being in a church context, and I majored in youth ministry, for crying out loud, in college. Sure. But I've always enjoyed all types of comedy. So I'm I'm not Christian enough to be the most Christian, but I'm not blue enough to be the most blue. Mm-hmm. I'm just always somewhere in the middle with this kind of stuff, where I truly enjoy comedy of all kinds. To me, it's I will laugh at anything if it's funny. Mm-hmm. I'm just a comedy fan at heart, purely. I mean, I grew up watching SNL, all the things, all the typical influences a lot of us have. Always enjoyed stand-up. Always thought about trying it one day. So all that to say, I do, by my nature, for better or worse, feel more comfortable in the cleaner comedy settings. And it's definitely way more of the material I have, especially. It's how I naturally write. But it's been if I can use a Christian term, it's been a blessing to me personally, because it's you've crafted. It's not about whether it's clean, not clean, whatever. And it's PG-13 now, so who can It's somewhere the type of content isn't even the focus so much as you have done a great job. And many of the open mic hosts around Charlotte have. I've been impressed with the fact that there's literally somewhere you can go to do comedy every night of the week, in a great environment. But just fostering the community aspect of it. You're a very supportive host, you're a very supportive person naturally. And so the way you produce your shows, the way you foster that environment at the Beer Temple, I think that in less experienced, less supportive hands, it might not have be still going today, or have become a place where folks like myself can truly grow their craft while like making connections and collaborating and just like growing as people and comics.
Well, thanks. And I think there's probably there's people who disagree with that approach. That's just my approach, that we're better together. We can all kind of work to build each other up and support each other and help each other in a positive and collaborative way. There are other people that I think would tell you that hardship breeds strength, and if you go out there and you're grinding it out in the big city, and no one should laugh at your joke unless it's the funniest thing ever. And I think there's a happy medium somewhere there. Like, we don't want to falsely inflate each other's egos, but we can all help each other grow and get better, right? There's room for everybody at the table, and if we build more and better comedy shows, there will just be more and better opportunities for everybody.
Yeah, 100%. I've talked to several of our mutual comedian friends lately, and the common refrain has been like, the rising tide lifts all boats. And I found that to be very, very true. Like, there are, again, mutual friends of ours, like, out there producing shows and doing things that have been great opportunities for many of us that wouldn't have existed, without their own success or ability to go and do that. So I've had enough hardship in my life aside from comedy. I think for me, it's like comedy needs to be a space of, connection and collaboration and, personal growth. And obviously you want to get better and all that, but,
Yeah. I'm a 47-year-old man. Like, I'm not looking for hardship in my life at this point. I've done that growing and grinding and building. And so, like, we talked about this before the show today, but I check in with myself frequently while I'm doing stand-up, and the question that I always ask myself is like, is this fun? Am I having fun? And if the answer to that question ever becomes consistently no, I'll hang it up, But so far the answer has continued to be a resounding yes.
And I was just about to bring that up because our mutual friend Brian LaFontaine was a guest a couple episodes ago on the Easter Pod, and I referenced you with him about that idea of having fun, because you and I had just had that conversation recently before he and I recorded at the Beer Temple. Mm-hmm. And that was so revelatory to me because, then, and even still, like, there's still many days where it can feel like this, but especially like 8 months ago or whatever it was, I was in a place with, like, still really, really striving in stand-up in a way of riding more so the roller coaster of, I'm awesome, I suck, I'm awesome, I suck. Or people like me, they don't, whatever, the creative roller coaster we can all ride. That self-talk, the inner monologues and narratives we can all have. And that was so freeing to just be like, it doesn't matter. Like, yeah, I've also had other comics tell me, like, you're never as great as your best set or as bad as your worst one. It's just finding that balance and realizing, yeah, if we're not having fun, if we're not ultimately using this as a vehicle to, yes, like, perfect a craft, do something we enjoy doing, but have fun doing it, meet people, like, go out there, support each other. We both have so much else going on in our lives at this stage. It's like, what would be the point of doing it?
Yeah, exactly. If it's not supplementing your life in a positive way, what is even the point of it? I completely agree with you. I lost my train of thought. I apologize.
That happens frequently. If you get it back, feel free to interrupt.
Totally fine.
Yeah. No, that happens to me all the time.
Good.
Yeah, you're in good company.
Yeah, it's fine. I had a second thought I was going to tack onto that, and it just completely fell out of my head.
Yeah, that has happened to me plenty of times. No worries. Like I said, if it comes back, please feel free to interrupt and get that point in. But I did want to connect so you mentioned you're a 6-time cancer survivor. We're talking about comedy. We talked about our mutual friend Brian, who runs great public speaking coach, actor, all the things. Please, I encourage you to go back and listen to my episode with him. He's a absolutely phenomenal human. Great to get to know him. And you've connected those dots into not just doing comedy, but doing on your website, laughwithcraig.com, little promo there.
Thanks for the shout out.
Yeah, I love that. By the way, I just love that branding, Laugh with Craig.
Thank you.
Like, that's great, because then somebody's going to go into it thinking like, well, I have to laugh with Craig. Like, that's what you do. You laugh with Craig.
That's my hope.
You're telling jokes like you're going to laugh with Craig.
Yeah, I'm hoping that's what people take out of it. It's humor has been, irrespective of doing stand-up comedy, humor has been a part of my DNA since I was young. but especially as I started going through my first time being diagnosed with cancer, I was diagnosed with lymphoma. I was going to the to Portland State University. I was like 23 years old at a time when most people kind of feel like they're sort of invincible, right? You've gotten through the tough years of junior high and high school. You're kind of starting out your life. You feel like nothing can touch you. And I got a diagnosis of stage 3 lymphoma. And I had two choices at that point. I could kind of cry about it, feel sorry for myself, say, why did this happen to me? Or I could think, wow, this is hilarious. Like, this is the punchline I never saw coming, right? I'm the luckiest unlucky person that I know. I had a pretty good survival rate quoted to me by my doctor. They had developed a pretty decent chemo regimen and radiation therapy for this type of cancer. So I spent a lot of time convincing others that I was going to be fine and using humor to do that. So much so that I didn't really get to stop and worry about whether I was going to be okay. And I got through it, and I did that by being able to laugh. And so that's what I think we're in a place now as a society and as a country where humor is kind of the last thing that a lot of people have on their minds right now. A lot of rhetoric, politics, social issues, everything is charged to kind of divide people or to put people into columns where they're kind of diametrically opposed to each other. But one thing that we all have in common is that we all love to laugh, like at our core. There's something that makes us laugh. And if we can find those things that unite people through laughter, like that's the greatest gift I think that we can give anybody. Laughter is, you can look up, just go to Google and type in laughter healing medical study, and you will find countless studies by reputable medical institutions that will tell you about the healing power of laughter. It's scientifically proven to make our lives better. And so if we can all give everybody that opportunity to laugh a little bit, like, let's do it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. For me, I won't get too deep into it, but for me personally, like, I come from a background of, yes, I majored in youth ministry in college, but very quickly, and there's like common threads through it, and I think you would agree with all your different projects and vehicles that you've used to kind of express, like, you have this coherent vision for your life and how you want to empower people, support people, and be in the world. For me, that's come through a lot of different vehicles as well, and youth ministry was one, but then very quickly, nonprofit world was one of getting involved with the laundry project in college. And I've talked about plenty on the podcast before, so won't belabor it, but just the idea of getting into the weeds with the very serious aspects of life. And you've done that a lot through like your cancer journey and, like however it expresses itself. And I think that the comedy symbol is that kind of like happy, sad, kind of, tragedy. What is that? Tragedy plus time equals...
Yeah, comedy equals tragedy plus time. Exactly.
Yeah, it's a yin and yang, 100%, because it's not that, you resist engaging with the difficult or deeper issues or aspects of life. But I think, trying to find the right words, it's balancing that, like, both can be healing, both the engaging with it and both the, like, laughing through it. And I think the comedy and the engaging with the serious, like, really complement each other well. And that's why I, like, love your mission and what you're doing with both stand-up and keynote speaking. Resilience Keynote Speaker, if I may read from your website
Sure.
briefly, because, it's on your website for a reason. It's a good way to sum it up. But just, you're helping high-pressure professionals move through stress and uncertainty using humor and practical resilience strategies, very much aligned like we've been discussing. Resilience isn't just about surviving. It's about finding the humor in the struggle through laughter, storytelling, and real-life experiences. You're helping audiences navigate uncertainty with confidence, reminding them that even in life's toughest moments, they can adapt, thrive, and yes, still laugh. And as somebody personally that I've been through a lot of insane struggles in life, comedy is something that has been very healing and helpful for me, whether it's consuming it through others or practicing it myself. So all that to say, you're 100% on the money, and I think it's awesome what you're doing, how you're like blending the two, doing stand-up and also using your story to go out there and help people.
Thanks. Yeah. I on a person-to-person level, I've been doing this for several years now, where if I have a friend or a coworker or a family member who meets somebody who's got a new cancer diagnosis, they're like, you've got to talk to Craig. Like, he's been through this, right? Like, some people have advanced degrees in bioengineering or like computer software development. I have a PhD in getting my butt kicked by cancer, like, so many times. And so I do have a lot of, wisdom to impart to people person to person. But at a certain point, I started thinking, like, how can I reach all the people who don't know me, right? Like, how can I help the people who don't know that they have me as this resource? And so that's where I kind of turned to keynote speaking. It was something that, you go through cancer enough times and people will say to you, wow, you're really inspiring. Have you ever thought about being a motivational speaker? And I'd always say, like, absolutely. Do you know how I do that? Because I don't, and nobody could really help me. And so I found my foothold through comedy and performing into the sort of public performer space. And that helped me kind of meet tangentially some of these speakers in Charlotte. And I joined the National Speakers Association, Carolinas. The Charlotte chapter is growing. Raleigh has a very active presence, but starting to meet other public speakers and trying to get my message out there a little more to the people who don't know me. I used to, and this is not really what you asked, but I used to kind of live my life thinking the best way I could live my life with cancer is to live a good life. And at the end of it, if cancer did eventually get me, people would say, wow, I didn't even know he was sick. He was just like such a positive guy. I never saw it coming. I thought that would be a life well lived. And around about the third time I got cancer, I realized I was doing a disservice to other people who were probably quietly struggling with it. And I realized I should probably live this life out in the open. I'm not disappointed in, like, when you hear about a celebrity that was quietly battling cancer. I'm not disappointed to hear that they didn't go public with it, but it reaffirms to me that I made the right choice by living it out in the open. No one will ever say, hey, I didn't know Craig was going through this. I wish I would have known. I would have loved to talk to him about it. I'd rather help people in whatever time that I have left. And I mean, honestly, Corey, none of us knows how much time we have left, right? Like, we could have days, weeks, months, years. Cancer could not even play into whatever ultimately causes my life to end. But I want to make sure that I'm spending every minute of it living it to the best of my ability, having fun, making people laugh, and hopefully helping them, live their life in the best way possible.
What makes you want to be that way as a person ultimately?
I just think there's so much, it's so easy to get caught up in the negativity that surrounds us. That's the easy path. And if we all keep going that way, the trajectory of the human race is just going to go down and down. And so I'd rather take the path of trying to elevate the people around me, trying to make in my own little way. If there are enough of us out there, right, in our own little way, trying to make the world a better place, the trajectory will go up and up. And that's what I'd really like to see. I'd like my kids to inherit a world that is better than the one that I inherited, right? And we all hope that we'll do a little better than our parents did, and our kids will do a little better than we did, and hopefully the world will get better.
Yeah, I appreciate that wisdom, and that's affirming for me because I generally try to approach things, projects and people and life in that same way. I think there's a certain like humility that life can thrust upon you. I like this line from your website of I didn't plan to become a motivational speaker. Cancer just kept booking me.
It's true.
Like, I'm sure if you, perfect world, like you would have never had to go through any of that stuff or whatever. But it is, it's always very redemptive to me to like see how people can go through things like what you've been through and then turn it on its head and use it to try to make the world a better place. Like, there's a philosophy that our organization, Current Initiatives, has, like a phrase we've used a lot of, like, do what you can. And it's the idea that the issues in our world can feel so overwhelming and debilitating at times that, and like, what do we even do? Where do we even begin or whatever? But I don't think complicated issues oftentimes can have complicated solutions, to be sure. But I do think there is a lot of power, and at the very least, it gets us the ball rolling on that journey of each of us striving to make something better. If we kind of like focus on what is the thing I have influence over, what is the thing I can control, starting small, starting with like the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, of who are the people I interact with every day? How do I want to treat them? How do I want to treat my family? Like, how do I want to be in the world? Like when you're out doing comedy or speaking or whatever, like, do you want to be empowering of other people? Do you want to be supportive? I think those are like things that can feel small and maybe like they're not making this huge impact that over time really do have that larger impact. Because that's why the two of us are even, with all the struggles we've been through respectively, that's why we're even sitting here today. That's why like your comedy journey the last 4 years or your recent like journey as a speaker, like you've had an innumerable positive impact on people through doing that, myself included. And I just think it's cool that if you just kind of like stay in the game and you just keep like taking it step by step and going for it, like the impact you can see grow over time from seemingly small to like pretty big. I don't know I don't want to speak this to you, it's your story, but have you seen that play out for yourself over time? The mutual, like you growing as a person and also being able to like truly impact and help others.
I definitely think so. And I'll agree with you. I try to, when I feel like I'm not making an impact, I try to remember impacts that people have had on me, just like somebody smiling at you or having a real genuine conversation with you, like when you're in line at the grocery store, can change your day for the better. And somebody cutting you off in traffic and giving you the middle finger can do the opposite. So, but one commonality I noticed as I was starting stand-up comedy, and I almost never get through a comedy set without at least mentioning my cancer survival and maybe just having a quick joke about that because it is such a part of who I am. And almost every show, inevitably, there will be somebody that comes up to me after the show and just says, hey, my mom is going through this right now, or my sister just, finished a chemo treatment, or I just lost my father-in-law last year. And what you said really affected me in a good way. Thank you for like meeting me there where I needed to be. There was a show that I went to a few months ago, and there was a woman who had lost her husband to cancer, and this was the first time she had left the house in like 6 months, and her friends kind of finally pulled her out to go to a comedy show, and then who does she meet but me joking about my cancer survival. And she, fortunately, she found that very healing, and she came up to me after the show and she said, wow, we were meant to meet tonight, And so I am a believer that the universe puts us in places that we need to be, and helps us meet the people that we're meant to meet when we're meant to meet them. So whenever I have those conversations, it's very affirming to me that I'm on the right path. I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. I mean, for what's worth, I would affirm that in the short time I've known you. I'm really like taking what you're saying. It's to bring it back to comedy. I think, for me, that's the place I would love to get to, keep growing better and better as a comedian. I think because of the power of laughter, because even in spite of all the public speaking I did before doing comedy, like in church settings or for nonprofit stuff or whatever, you get so much time in comedy on stage.
Yeah.
Like I could argue I've had more stage time doing comedy the last 2 years than maybe all the other public speaking stuff combined. I think your willingness and bravery to like share your story as part of your comedy, I've seen you perform many, many times. You're not up there very dour and, you're like, this is what it is, but like, here's some jokes. And that really is such a way to connect with people that I think, man, what a powerful tool comedy can be. And I would love to learn how to harness it more to like talk openly about some of those struggles and resilience. And I'm sure it's the same for you, but like some of my favorite stand-up comedians, like you feel like you do know them, about like very difficult or raw, real, authentic parts of their lives. And kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, I do feel like there is this balance and they really help each other out. Like the more you're able to be authentic on stage as a comedian, and obviously, write good jokes and all that, but I think it just helps you connect with people more, makes you better as a comic, helps you grow. And comedy just as a vehicle, not just to make people laugh and connect with them that way, but to like have people come up to you like, hey, I've also had that struggle. Like, I think that's pretty cool.
And not that I'm the expert or anything, but I have found in the last several years that it's a balancing act, right? Like I used to lead off with cancer material, and that's a tough pill for people to swallow when they don't know you yet. And so I had a writer friend of mine tell me, you got to get them to like you, before you kind of open up some of those more difficult conversations. And so now I kind of start off with a little more lighthearted and relatable family humor, a little bit self-effacing. And then I kind of like open up to a little, what you might consider to be a little bit darker material about some of the things that I've struggled with. But you don't want people worrying about you. You want them seeing that you're okay, right? Like, so it's tricky. It's tricky. They got to like you, and then you can say like, "Hey, I'm okay." And I've mid-set had to say, "Guys, I'm okay. I've been okay. I'm gonna be okay. Can we all like get on the page with me here that everything is fine?" And that's a failure on my part to have set that expectation up front. But we're all learning as we go, right?
Yeah, that's such a great point because I've had my humor tends to be fairly self-deprecating. So like, especially in my earlier days doing comedy, I could take that too far that direction. Mm-hmm. It's temptation, and like even sometimes now I'll have jokes where like I have one joke about like being tall but nobody looks up to me. It was like one of the first jokes I ever wrote, like in Jason's class or whatever, and it's stuck around, but. It's funny, like a majority of the time people hear that and they go like, oh. Like
yeah, I found like literally something as simple as laughing as you say something will help kind of ease the, you kind of catch the audience as they're falling when you pull the rug out from under them there.
Yeah.
Like, okay, he's laughing. It's fine to laugh. He's not, this isn't a cry for help right now. It's a comedy set.
Right. Yeah, and there's that temptation to like, that comedy is therapy, so you got to balance. Like comedy is comedy at the end of the day, but I think there's ways to kind of balance that with some of the harder things of life. But actually, I just straight up ask. I don't know if I've asked you this before. Like, who are your biggest comedy influences? It could be locally or nationally, otherwise, like whatever.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously, big fan of a lot of local comedians. We have a lot of talent in Charlotte that's not nationally known. I won't drop specific names, but in actual stand-up comedy, I have just a ton of influences. One of the people that I'd really love to meet just personally and have a conversation with is Pete Holmes. Just a really brilliant comedian. He's kind of where I'm at theologically and spiritually, not to go too far down that road, but just a really unique and cool individual. And I feel like his sense of humor is a lot in line with mine. He gets pigeonholed as being kind of a clean comic a lot of the time, but he has a dark streak in his sense of humor that can catch people off guard. So he's one. Guilty pleasure comedian for me is Anthony Jeselnik. He's, from a pure like setup punchline standpoint, one of the I feel like last guys remaining from that sort of 1980s style of stand-up comedy that I grew up with. Not at all the kind of jokes that I write, but I found when I was first developing my voice as a comic, I was imitating his setup and punchline style of delivery. I've kind of gotten away from that at a certain point. Let's see who else. Mike Birbiglia, from a storytelling and just set construction standpoint, he can tell a story and go into 6 or 7 different tangents. And you're like, wait, what about the thing he was talking about before? And he'll always find his way back to the main narrative thread, and he'll have a whole point to it. His comedy specials to me are like theses. They've got a point, they've got supporting details, and then they have a conclusion at the end. So those would be 3 that come to mind immediately.
Yeah, 100% agree with you on the local talent aspect. This is the only comedy scene I know, but I feel very lucky to be a part of it. It's helped my growth a ton to be around like so much of the talent we have here locally in Charlotte. There are too many names to name. It's been incredible to just like watch our friends and fellow comics like perform and perfect their craft. And I've learned so much from you and like so many other people in the process, like down to the little things of like how do you prep, how do you write, all that stuff. It's been amazing to just meet like people of like that level of talent and like become friends and stuff, and really like help all of us helping each other out. Pete Holmes, yeah, this is why we're friends, man. This is like get along so well. Like same. I'm like pointing at you the whole time you're talking. Like many of the same influences in comedy. Pete Holmes is a huge one for me. Did you ever watch Crashing?
Oh my God, best. Yeah, absolutely.
I watched that before I even had a inkling of trying stand up. Well, I'd want to do it my whole life, but before I any serious effort to do it, and coming from a church background like I do, and yeah, I relate to Pete Holmes on a number of levels. And I actually met him one time in LA.
Oh wow!
But that was before I was like a fan or really familiar with his work. I was at a Rob Bell conference. Rob Bell's a pastor. Him and Pete Holmes are good friends.
Okay.
And Rob Bell was doing a conference at the Viper Room in West Hollywood and was doing like a leadership thing. And I was there in my capacity with current initiatives and watching Pete and Rob go back and forth on stage, and then everyone's standing around talking afterwards. And it's one of my regrets that I never I thought I was too cool for school to not get a picture with him or with Rob Bell or anybody. But
man.
That started my journey into Pete Holmes' stuff. And Mike Birbiglia, yeah, I mean, anyone's listened to NPR for a second, I mean, he's all over it. But I think that's kind of what I was trying to describe earlier, that balance. He, to me, Mike Birbiglia, is somebody that's so good at that, blending the real life whatever with humor and taking you on that journey. So that's cool. I didn't know that we had that in common.
I'm jealous that you met Pete. The closest I've gotten to him was I saw him at I think the Belk Theater when he came through town a couple years ago. And then a few months later, I got to be in a comedy competition that had I made it to the finals. It was a March Madness themed bracket style comedy competition. I made it to the finals, and the finals were held at the same theater. And I was as I was standing on stage there, I was wow, I'm standing where Pete Holmes was standing just a few months ago. And that was a really surreal experience. But one day, hopefully, I'll be able to meet him as well.
That's how I felt probably after my second Beer Temple open mic and getting to know you more. I was wow, I just stood where Craig.
We've all got our different perspectives, I guess. I feel like you need to aim a little higher, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, fair. So as we're kind of wrapping up a little bit, I would be remiss if I didn't. You're an author as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'll use that term a little loosely. I am a writer. I talk about not using your degree or not doing for a living what you went to school for, but I have a degree in English with a minor in technical and professional writing. I always thought I was going to be an author. I'm kind of glad that I don't do that for a living, because I think doing something day in and day out for money tends to suck some of the joy out of it. But had an awesome experience 2 Januaries ago. I went to a goal-setting conference that I was fortunate enough to speak at, and it got me fired up. This whole conference was all about do the things you're wanting to do this year, take the next step. And I texted a friend of mine who is a publisher for Running Press, and an editor for Running Press, excuse me. And he was always somebody that I said to myself, when I'm ready to write a book about my life, I'll reach out to him. And I texted him at a break during this conference, super fired up. And I was like, dude, I need to write the book, about my life. And I need to do it right now. And there was a 30-second pause, and he texted me back, "Is everything okay?" And I realized you can't just drop that on somebody when you have my history, right? My medical history. And I said, "Yeah, no, it's fine. I'm just really, really fired up. I need to start now." And he said, "Cool, I'm happy to help you. Let's talk about it." He said, "I do have a project in the short term, not to try to derail you, but it might be a nice ramp up to you writing the bigger book." He said, "We publish these books for Running Press that if you've ever been in a Barnes & Noble, they have the little spinner rack, and it's the world's tiniest Zen garden and the world's tiniest, inflatable arm waving tube guy, and they always package them in with a book." And he said, I'm working on a concept for a drum kit that plays the kind of comedy, it's the comedic sting. They call it the rim shot, but it's really the comedic sting. He said, I need a book about that, and you're the first person that I thought of to write that, because you're the only person I know doing comedy. And I said, sure, absolutely. Just leaned into it like anything else. And it's a very small book. to go with a very small product. I think it's less than 3,000 words total, but it's basically just a 101 about the history of stand-up comedy, the history of the comedic sting, a few tips and tricks that I've learned from starting stand-up comedy. And it comes with a really cool drum kit, so it's been a nice way for me to dip my toe into the publishing world. I got to be a part of the whole process where they picked the illustrator and mocked up the book, and I got to see it throughout the inception. And it took a year and a half, I think, to hit shelves. But now if you walk into a Barnes & Noble, any Barnes & Noble in the world, they'll have it on their little spinner rack in the front. So that's a little feather in my cap. But the big book is coming someday if I can get off my butt and write it.
What are some of your goals moving forward in comedy or speaking?
I just want, look, long term, the dream would be to be a full-time professional speaker, be able to travel around the country, balancing life with my family, maybe bringing them along with me where it's appropriate, and just reaching as many people as I can. In the short term, I just want to keep having fun, influencing lives positively, and just getting in front of as many people as I can to share my message with them. But yeah, like I don't have any illusions that I'll ever have a Netflix special in comedy or, be headlining Madison Square Garden. I don't think that's in the cards for me. I'm very, very happy with my role. I'd consider myself to be at a traveling feature level right now. So I've gone around 5 or 6 different states opening for bigger names than me. And that's really where I like to be. Make them laugh for about 20 minutes and then sit back and have a drink while I watch the headliner crush and bring it home. Speaking, I do feel like there's a career path for me there where I could be keynoting at healthcare conferences and survivors groups and talking to healthcare professionals and, corporate professionals and really helping them see that you can use humor to overcome any adversity and helping them kind of contextualize some of the problems that they're having against something really serious like, cancer or terminal illness.
It was funny that you bring up the Netflix special thing because I feel like there's a list of cliche things that people ask or say to you when you say you're doing comedy. And when's your Netflix special coming?
Yeah.
Definitely on that list, along with like, oh, tell us a joke.
Right. Or, hey, I've got one for you. You can feel free to use this, right? You get real good at saying no, thank you.
Yeah. What encouragement or advice would you give to, I guess anyone in general, but other comics, however you want to frame that?
Sure. It's comedy is harder than it looks. I think if we're doing our jobs as entertainers and performers, we make it look extremely easy. I think it's easy to see other people doing it and say, man, I could do that. I mean, I did the same thing. I'll say 5 minutes is longer than you think that first time you get up there on stage. You'll get to about 3 minutes and go, man, have I been up here for 20 minutes? It's hard. It's very difficult, and it doesn't get easy for a long time. I don't think I've gotten to a point where I feel like it's easy. So work hard, stick with it, write, perform. Off-stage interactions with people are equally as, if not more important than what you do on stage, how you conduct yourself, how you hang out, how you present yourself, how you communicate with other people. Comedy, like it or not, it's an art form, but like most art forms, there's also a business element of it. And if you can conduct yourself in a business-like manner, you're going to have a lot better luck than, or a lot better experiences than if you don't.
Yeah, 100%. That's been my experience is as somebody personally that was just like brand new to comedy within the last couple years, like performing stand-up. But I had experiences, be it as a musician or otherwise, like trying to figure out professionalism in more of a creative sense. If you can be not great at stand-up, you can still very much be learning and figuring it out and like finding yourself and finding your voice and all that stuff. But I do feel like there's a piece of if you're kind of following Craig's advice and everything you just shared really about the professionalism and how you're like working to get better and stuff, I feel like for the most part, people that are better comedians than you, that are producers further down the road or whatever, will like show you that grace and patience and like give you the time to like kind of grow into it, come into yourself. because that's what you and a lot of people have done for me. Like, it may seem like a small thing, but it was a very full circle moment for me, when you asked me to feature at the Beer Temple mic in July, because I feel like, your mic was kind of my home mic of like where I really cut my teeth and grew as a comedian. And you really, in many ways from the start, like watched me grow as a comic. So to have that validation of, it may have, been a year and a half or whatever, but just like, it was kind of like a, I don't know, for lack of a better comparison, like a Yoda type moment of like, all right, now you are ready to go take on Darth Vader. And that meant so much. Again, it goes back to how you fostered that, but it does speak to your advice of, generally speaking, I think if you're figuring out how you're conducting yourself on the human aspect too, then the two can kind of grow together and you're giving yourself the space to do that.
I mean, people did that for me, right? When I was starting, there were people that encouraged me. There were people that gave me those guest spots, gave me those opportunities. And so I try to, I know it's a cliche, but I try to pay that forward when I can. I see people who take it seriously and work hard, and I want to give them opportunities that were given to me. If people show up and just support my ticketed shows, and I know they're not going to walk my audience, then I'll give them a 5-minute guest spot. Those are the things that people did for me. And so I guess my ask for you would be, as long as you continue to do it, and if you're in a position to provide those opportunities to other people, that you just do the same and kind of carry that on, and we'll just all get better together.
100%. That is kind of, well, first of all, you do that for, I said do.
Blue comedy from Corey today.
Hey, that's dirty as it's going to get, folks. No. I've seen you, and not just for me, I've seen you do that for lots of people practically, give lots of people opportunities and be supportive for lots of people. And I do take that to heart and very seriously, that encouragement to do that. That is like one of my dreams is, man, it'd be so cool to like, now that our daughter's growing up a little bit and like there's a little bit more perhaps life flexibility, being able to produce shows or just like get more into the entrepreneurial side of comedy where you are giving other people those opportunities. Like for now, this podcast can be a vehicle for that, to help support people get their work out there. But I take that encouragement very seriously to heart because I would love to do that from a comedy standpoint one day.
You're the perfect person for it. And I like, on that note, thank you for this opportunity. I am trying every avenue to kind of get the word out about me, and this is like the perfect place to do it. So I mean, I know we've talked about this for a very long time, so I'm glad that our schedules finally aligned and we were able to get together.
Yeah, 100%. You very much to me, just as a person and the work you're doing, embody the whole mission of this podcast, which is to share those like stories of rad humans that encourage and inspire you to engage the world with creativity and hope. Like you have inspired me directly to engage the world in a creative and hopeful manner through your story, through your personal support and friendship, through your comedy, all that stuff. And I know you do that for lots of other people. And, it's a no-brainer to have folks like yourself on that I know to anyone listening are going to take a lot of encouragement away from you sharing your story. So I do appreciate that and you coming on. Where can people connect with your work, follow you, all that stuff?
I try to make it easy, so I'm on all social media under Laugh with Craig. My website is laughwithcraig.com. My Instagram is @laughwithcraig. You can find me on Facebook. I have a professional account there where you can follow me. But the best thing to do is go on my website and give me a follow on Instagram. I have a page for my comedy. I have a page to book me for speaking engagements, and you can find out a lot more about me just through my website.
Yeah, please go check out Craig's work. If you're in a position to do so, please book him for stuff, comedy, speaking, all that good stuff. Let him write more tiny books that go along with more tiny musical instruments. But no, please engage with Craig, follow his stuff, support his work as he has supported so many others. I am grateful for the opportunity to laugh with you, Craig. I know that anyone that engages with and supports your work will also have a similar experience of laughing, feeling encouraged and uplifted. And I thank you. This has been a long time in making this conversation, so just thank you again so much for being willing to come on the Easter Pod.
Truly a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Corey.